the family disappointment. The ballroom shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers. Gold accents reflected soft light across the reception hall. And the carefully arranged roses, deep red ivory and blush, created a dreamlike atmosphere. Guests laughed, glasses clinked. And the newlyweds twirled across the dance floor, looking every bit like a fairy tale couple. No one knew that I was the one who had made it all possible. I stood near the back, nursing a glass of whiskey from the open bar. The very bar I had paid for in full. The band playing smooth jazz on the stage had been my hire too. Secured last minute after the original DJ backed out. Even the elegant floral displays that lined the hallways and the extra lighting system were quietly funded by me. I hadn't wanted recognition. Not really what I wanted was to do something meaningful. A gesture of good faith for a family that had spent years treating me like the odd one out. From childhood, I had been the difficult one. My father loved to remind people of my early failures. Dropping out of college had been his favorite topic. His proof that I was destined to amount to nothing. What he rarely mentioned was that I had left to pursue a startup idea, one that after years of brutal trial and error turned into a thriving tech business. My company had grown to generate more income in a month than my father had seen in a year of hard work, yet even then. My success wasn't celebrated. Instead, I was only acknowledged when they needed something. Help with a loan advice on finances. Or in this case, saving a wedding that was about to collapse under budget pressure. I told myself it didn't matter. My cousin deserved her big day, and she was innocent in the toxic patterns my family perpetuated. She had always been kind to me, never joining the chorus of mocking remarks. That's why I had stepped in, silently calling vendors, moving money, smoothing over details without ever attaching my name. It was easier this way, I thought. No drama, no backhanded comments, no awkward tension, just me playing the role of an invisible benefactor. But fate has a cruel way of twisting moments. As I debated whether to slip out before midnight, my father's voice cut through the air near the head table. His deep, dismissive tone was unmistakable even across the crowded room. "He's the disappointment," he told the groom's parents with a smirk, his hand gesturing lazily in my direction. "We don't talk about him unless we need money." The words slammed into me like a punch to the chest. I froze, glass in hand, my body stiffening as the meaning sank in. Around the table, faces reacted. My aunt, the bride's mother, burst into laughter, as though my humiliation were the night's entertainment. My sister, standing nearby, didn't laugh, but she didn't defend me either. She simply lowered her eyes, her shoulders shrinking as if wishing she could vanish into the floor. The groom's parents looked startled, caught in the awkwardness of witnessing something they clearly hadn't expected. Their eyes flicked to me, then back to my father, confusion written across their faces. Heat rushed through my veins, a mixture of shame and fury. I had endured years of these remarks, usually brushed aside as jokes. I had swallowed insults and tolerated dismissive attitudes, because I thought keeping the peace was more important. But hearing those words here, in a room that sparkled with things I had provided, was the breaking point. Every rose petal, every sip of wine, every song floating through the air carried my fingerprint. Without me, none of it would have existed. And yet, in front of strangers, I was nothing but a family embarrassment. Something broke inside me. I set my drink down on a nearby table, my movements deliberate, almost calm. My legs carried me toward the DJ booth, each step pulsing with clarity. The music washed over me, soft, romantic. Utterly at odds with the storm inside. I tapped the DJ's shoulder, asked for the microphone, and within seconds the music faded. The room quieted, heads turned. My cousin paused mid-dance, her veil glimmering under the lights, her face glowing with happiness. She smiled at me, expecting kind words or perhaps an impromptu toast. I took a deep breath. "Good evening, everyone." I began, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "I just want to thank you all for being here tonight, to celebrate such a beautiful couple. This day has been magical, and seeing two people so in love start their lives together is truly inspiring." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. My cousin beamed, her husband squeezing her hand. For a moment, I almost stopped there. Almost, but then I remembered my father's smirk, my aunt's laughter, my sister's silence. "I do want to clear up one thing." I continued, my tone sharpening. "You've all been enjoying the open bar, the flowers, the band. The upgraded lighting, you should know those weren't gifts from chance. They were paid for by me until about 10 minutes ago." The silence was deafening. Faces turned toward me in shock. My father's expression hardened. His skin flushing red, my aunt's grin froze. Brittle and cracking, my cousin's smile faded into horror. I pulled my phone from my jacket, tapped the screen a few times, and said quietly into the microphone, "Those payments, they're canceled." Across the room, the venue manager's tablet beeped with a notification. His brow furrowed as he glanced at me. Then at the wedding party, I walked over, handed him an envelope with the pending invoices, and said, "I'm sure someone else will be happy to cover the balance." Behind me, whispers rose into chaos. The band fell silent, the bartender froze, unsure whether to keep pouring drinks. The party, my cousin's dream wedding, collapsed in real time. I walked toward the exit. My father shouting my name. My aunt fumbling for excuses. My sister pleading under her breath. I didn't turn back. The music had already died, and so had my silence. The fallout. The calls didn't stop by midday. My phone was vibrating so constantly I had to set it face down. My coworkers asked why I wasn't in Greece. I told them plans had changed and buried myself in work. By afternoon, the family had shifted tactics. Dad's messages softened. "We can work this out." My sister claimed the note was just a joke. Mom demanded I call right now. I ignored them all the next morning. I turned my phone on to find 63 more missed calls. Their desperation had soured into anger. Dad's voicemail was cold. "You've made your point." "Family doesn't abandon each other like this." My sister cried that her friends were asking for trip photos. And she was humiliated. Mom spat venom. "Your father worked 35 years for this retirement, and you're ruining it over nothing. Over nothing that was their version of events." Days later, Dad showed up at my door. He looked exhausted. Airport hotels and missed flights had aged him. He sat at my kitchen table, insisting this was an overreaction. He admitted they should have checked if I was coming, but claimed I had grown distant. When I reminded him I'd only asked for help with groceries and bills. While they lived in my house, he said it felt transactional. I asked him when the last time was that someone else paid for Sunday dinner. He didn't answer. Dad finally suggested they could pay me back overtime, that I could rebook the trip. I told him the money wasn't the point anymore. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to fix things. He left without another word. My sister twisted the story, telling anyone who would listen that I had sabotaged the family vacation. My brother reached out more carefully, asking to meet over coffee. He admitted leaving me out was wrong, but his solution was that I should apologize for canceling the trip, and they would apologize for the mix-up. Mix-up, that was the word. Now I asked if he thought it was a mix-up. When my sister bragged about a drama-free vacation without me, he didn't answer. He just reminded me that I was the only one who could fix it. I had the money, the accounts, the power. I asked him why it always had to be my job. Silence stretched between us that night. For the first time in years, I made dinner for one and watched a movie I actually wanted. Nobody asked me for a ride or for money or for help. The quiet felt like a gift. The reckoning a week after the wedding disaster. My sister Sophie called again. Her tone was firm, almost rehearsed. We need to talk, all of us. I've arranged a meeting at Mom and Dad's house this weekend. Please come. Part of me wanted to hang up immediately. What could possibly come from another round of insults and excuses? But curiosity, and maybe the faintest hope that something could change, made me agree. Saturday came gray and cold. I parked outside my parents' suburban house, a place that had never truly felt like home. The windows glowed warmly, but I knew the atmosphere inside would be anything but. When I walked in, the living room was already full. My parents sat stiffly on the couch, my father's jaw tight, my mother's hands folded in her lap. Aunt Carol and Uncle Tom looked drained, shadows under their eyes. My cousin Emily sat beside her new husband, her posture tense, as though she was ready to bolt at the first harsh word. Sophie hovered in the corner, clearly prepared to play mediator. The silence was suffocating. Finally, Sophie broke it. We're here because we can't keep pretending everything is fine. What happened at the wedding was ugly, but it forced us to face the truth. So let's start with that. Her gaze landed on my father. Dad, you need to explain why you said what you did. My father shifted uncomfortably. His eyes narrowing. I was joking. He muttered, everyone's blowing it out of proportion. Daniel's always been too sensitive. Heat rose in my chest, a joke. I said, my voice trembling with controlled anger. You called me the family disappointment in front of strangers. After I saved that wedding, after years of helping silently. That wasn't a joke. That was the story you've been telling about me my whole life. His face flushed. You think you're the only one who's had struggles? You dropped out, you failed. That was more than 10 years ago. I cut in sharply. Yes, I stumbled. But I built something from nothing. I created a business that's more successful than anything you could have imagined. And still, I'm treated like dirt. Do you even realize how much I paid for the flowers? The venue, the music. Everything you all praised without once asking where it came from. You didn't even care as long as it wasn't me. The room went quiet. My aunt finally spoke, her voice small. We didn't mean to take you for granted. We thought you wanted to help. You've always had more money than the rest of us, and I laughed bitterly. So that's it, I'm the family ATM. Useful when you need a check. Invisible when you don't. Emily's voice broke the tension. Soft, but filled with pain. Daniel, I didn't know. I swear I didn't. The flowers. The venue, I loved them so much. If I'd known you made all that possible, I would have thanked you every single day. But the way you ended it, it felt like betrayal on my wedding night. Her words pierced deeper than any of the others I met her. Tear-filled eyes and nodded slowly. I know, and I'm sorry you didn't deserve what happened. My anger wasn't at you, it was at them. But I realize I hurt you in the process. And that's something I'll regret for a long time. Her husband placed a hand on her shoulder. Silent but supportive, Sophie leaned forward. This can't just be about blame. It has to be about change. Dad, Aunt Carol, Uncle Tom, you can't keep treating Daniel like he's less than. You've mocked him, dismissed him, and only included him when you needed something. That ends now if we're going to move forward as a family. He needs to be treated like an equal. Like a son, like a cousin. Not a punchline. The weight of her words hung in the room. My father rubbed his temples, exhaling heavily. Fine, he muttered. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I held on to the past longer than I should have. But you blindsided us, Daniel. You didn't give us a chance to fix it before you burned it all down. I shook my head. You've had 32 years to fix it. That night, I finally decided I wasn't going to let you bury me under your narrative anymore. Aunt Carol spoke again, guilt softening her voice. We owe you more than an apology. We owe you gratitude without you. That wedding wouldn't have happened at all. And instead of thanking you, we made you feel worthless. I see that now. Emily reached across the table, her hand trembling but determined. If we're ever going to heal from this, we all need to start fresh. No more secrets, no more insults. No more taking each other for granted. I don't want this family broken forever. For the first time, real silence filled the room. Not the suffocating kind, but a pause where words had finally landed. I nodded slowly. I'm willing to help with the costs, but only if things change. I won't be treated like an outcast anymore. If you want me here, you need to accept me. Not just my money, everyone nodded. Some reluctantly, some with relief. My father said nothing more, but his lack of protest was the closest thing to agreement I'd ever gotten from him. When I left that night, the air outside felt different, lighter. The road ahead was still uncertain, and I doubted years of pain could be erased in a single meeting. But for the first time in decades, I believed my family might actually see me. Not as the disappointment, not as the wallet, but as a man who had fought tooth and nail for his place in the world. The wedding had collapsed, but in its ruins, the truth had finally been unearthed. And maybe, just maybe, that truth could be the foundation for something better.